Welcome to Girl Dad Nation. This is part 2 of my interview with Lonnie Anderson, with more encouragement and great stories for raising daughters. If you have not already listened to part 1, I encourage you to listen to that episode first, as this is a continuation of the same interview. Thanks for joining us. Let's get to it. I wanted to ask you about, now that your girls are older, you mentioned advocacy, and I wanted to just ask about things in the community and different causes that your daughters are passionate about, and ways that they show support for that, and and how you are a supportive dad for things that they care about.
Yeah. So I've been really fortunate that way as well. My daughters, I do gang intervention in the South Valley here in Albuquerque. And, I kind of, even when I was in New York, I'd always come back and talk to the kids, and I go into the jail, Foothill Jail High School here, and work with the art teacher. And I'm working with a project right now with Shepherd Ferry, where I'm actually bringing original pieces of art. Shepherd Ferry did the Obama poster, so we have a piece of his original art, and we're taking it into the jails. And so my daughters were actually raised at a gang institute when they were little kids. They volunteered. We always had food, so they would sit there and pass out food. And we have famous people, like we have Rudolph Onaya, the Arthur. He's passed away, but he was on our board, and Harry Belafonte is on our board, and Danny Trejo's on our board. So Danny Trejo comes out every year, Machete, and he comes out and he, talks to the kids, former gang members and incarcerated youth. And my girls go because, they got to know Danny, and they have pictures of him when they were little, with Danny Trejo. And so they thought he was their uncle, because all of the people that we work with at the Gang Institute, they're former gang members, incarcerated people, but have turned their lives around and are working with youth, and they're all her uncles. So these are all like pretty bad dudes. I mean, they're not anymore. They've changed their lives, but they're gangsters, and they're my daughter's uncles. And so they just thought Danny Trejo was just this another uncle. They would tell people in school. And finally, one of my daughters came home and was like, Danny Trejo's not really our uncle. I said, well, no, he's not your uncle. Like, he's not my brother. He comes to the institute and works with the kids. So yeah, he kind of is your Tio, like he is your uncle. And they were so disappointed because they thought this actor was there. But I thought it was funny. Like they literally were raised at this gang institute and around, people that were always struggling, and we, always trying to help. I work with kids, teaching them art, trying to get them their GED, trying to get them, jobs and follow their dream. And then I noticed like my daughters were paying attention. So Hawthorne, my older daughter, volunteers at the Crossroads for Women, which is a women's shelter. And I was just like, wow, like, I found out like she'd been volunteering there for like 2 years before I even like realized that she was volunteering there. Again, it's like when they get older, you're not always like in their business. Yeah. So I knew she was doing something, but I didn't know where she was doing it. And so I was like, wow. And then my younger daughter, again, she just finished a mural. And that mural is going to go on the outside of Crossroads for Women. And I thought, wow, again, it's one of those things like they kind of are doing their own things. They're out in the world. My younger daughter is this like just advocate for, global warming and all this stuff. With these groups and doing different things and teaching me, about recycling and different things. Yeah. And again, my older daughter was the one who really, pushed me to go to the protests. I was a dad who was like, I don't think we should go to the protests. What's going on? We don't know what's going on. It's a pandemic, like we don't know what this disease is doing. And, my daughter just put on her mask and stood at the door and said, I'm going to go. So and she was old enough to drive. So she said, you can go with me and, make sure I'm okay, or you can stay here, but I'm going to go. And, at that point as a dad, you can be the dad who's like, you're going to stay here and you're not, and I was just like, look, I didn't raise my daughters to do that. And so I got my stuff, and she was the one that was like, grab your camera, and so I grabbed my camera, and I was able to do a lot of activism through my photography. And going to all these different protests and getting photos that were to a point where actually was published. I was on the cover of the Boston Globe. And I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm holding a sign on the cover of the Boston Globe for Floyd. And again, it wasn't me. It was my daughters, like, really. And I tell people, because people were like, man, that was really great that you were out there for Black Lives Matter and you were protesting, and, we appreciate it. And I always remind them, like, look, if it was me, I probably would have been so terrified of the pandemic that I wouldn't have went, because I didn't. I'm older now, and I'm like, that thing will kill me, the way I eat and the way I'm in shape. But my daughters were the ones that were like, I'm going, and you need to go with me. And so we went to every protest, and we ended up working with a group that helped an activist that had been put in jail, Clifton White. And we were able to do a lot of work and help get him out of jail and back with his family. And I feel like, so I'd like to take all the credit in the world for it and being like, see where I stood, what I just have to say, thank God I have daughters who care about other people and, are activists or have that compassion like we talked about. They know that there's something outside of their circle that they need to pay attention to. And so that's the things. And again, I've seen my kids do everything from like make bread and take it to a homeless shelter, to my daughter was babysitting some of the women at the shelter. And they get a night to watch movies, and they all have kids. And it's one of those little things, like, you don't know as a single mom that you don't get any time by yourself. And so she and her friends would watch the babies, watch the kids, so that the moms could get 2 hours of their life to watch a movie. And man, when you hear that your daughter's doing that, you're like, oh, like, I think I posted on Facebook this morning, like, my daughter her mural's going up on this building. And I was like, when I was her age, I was like setting the neighbor's haystack on fire. And I was like, I set my neighbor's garage on fire, but I set off an M80 in there. And I stole $150 worth of quarters from my uncle, who used to put the quarters in the rolls, and he would put them in this big jug. And we would take these quarters and, we'd go to the circus, or we'd go,
Sure, you're just thinking about yourself and what's going to be fun and whatever, and impressing your friends and stuff. Can
you imagine? No, I was not saying, hey, let's go to a protest, no, or advocating for climate change. I mean, oh geez, so I feel like as a parent, other parents are watching this and they're saying you just made it a lot more confusing. Like, how am I supposed to be a good parent? And I always think about it you always know what you've always known your whole life, what's good and what's bad. You've known, even when you did bad things, you knew it. There's something in us that teaches us that. And And it's like, that's it. Like just with the parents, like you just know if you're a good parent. Are you putting notes in your kids' lunches? Are you listening to them when they come to you and they're just begging for attention and you're too busy because you're working or doing something, that you just stop and you pay attention to them? Are you, you just know. And that's it. Like it's not, doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to read, like you said, that whole, they got all these lists of these things of like, well, this is what you should do to be a good parent. And then, do this, listen to your kids and activate for them at school. And, it's like, but I think it's like, you have all that knowledge. Like, I can only say that I think everybody has that knowledge because I walked past that guard in the hospital and he didn't say like, you wait, you can't take that kid out of here. It was like, it was like, you have all the tools you need. Like, now go out and be an awesome dad.
Yeah. Well, I think like in the workforce, like oftentimes you look at the job requirements and it's like, oh yeah, minimum like 5 to 10 years experience. And you're like right out of college and you're like, well, I thought this was an entry level job. And like, how do I, like, this is like barely more than like minimum wage, what my other job was. And like, I'm just like an intern and I need 5 years experience or whatever. And you get like overwhelmed and you feel like you're underqualified and all that kind of stuff. And as a parent, you're never going to learn unless you have that chance. And in the workforce, so many employers are looking for like that perfect candidate and that like 5 to 10 years experience, every box checked, etc. And sometimes it's overwhelming. And also sometimes it's like, you're never going to find somebody that fits all of those things. But the most talented people that I know and that I've worked with, they're like, yeah, well, I didn't know this like when I first started. and someone just gave them that chance. And I think becoming a dad, it's like, now you have that chance. Like you don't become a dad and have 5 years experience. Like you had to start somewhere, and it's growing and you learn those things over time. And it's learning from people who have been a dad, who now have teenagers and stuff like that. You'll learn those things, but it's kind of on the job training. And I think that that's all right. Like, I think that just getting your feet wet, getting messy and diving in, you learn so much. Even just in 2 years, I've learned so much that once we had our second daughter, it was like, okay, like we've been through this. I kind of know what to expect. And then it's awesome too if you have the right support person. My wife is amazing. From what I've heard about your wife, like she's amazing, and it's awesome that you model those things for each other, and then that you've got that other person to help you along. And then for all those people too that don't have a support person, hopefully you're able to rely on the community and mentors in your life, people that you look up to, and it's still going to be okay. It's still going to be all right. And your kids still look up to you. You're still their dad.
Hero. You're still,
yeah.
You're still their hero. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I exactly what you said. I did, even for Father's Day, I always write this thing that's always like, happy Father's Day to the good dads and the bad dads and the sad dads and the happy dads and the Trump loving dads and the Obama loving dads and the Obama hating dads and the Trump hating dads and the gun rights dads and the anti-gun rights dads and the dads who are not good dads, and the dads that struggle to be in their kids' lives and the dads that choose not to be in their kids' lives, and the dads that, unfortunately are in jail, and the dads who just got out of jail and aren't able to see their kid for the first time. And I always like write this because I think it's important to understand, like, I always go back to my brother, like you can't put it on a scale like, wow, Lonnie's the best dad, and then this dad in jail is the worst dad. And it's like, no, really, like I could be the worst dad, and that guy in jail is struggling so hard to be a good dad. And that's the deal is like, there's just, it's impossible to judge, what's good and what's bad. Like you said, like there's no rule book. There's no book to show you how to do it. There's nobody telling you how to do it. And so for me is it's like important to remember those dads, like you said, like the single moms or the single dads that are doing, their best. They're working 2 jobs and trying to keep a roof over their kids and trying to keep them from being homeless, or even a homeless dad who lives in a car and, he's able to like bring home, a hot meal one night for this kid, and it's like, that's the stuff. It's just beautiful. It's love. It's being a dad. It's, even my dad, like, is a pretty violent guy. And I'm sure I did not agree with, the way he treated me or my brothers or sisters and my way I treated my mom. But, I loved him, and I appreciated that he got me out of the orphanage, and I appreciated that he did teach me stuff. He taught me not to be afraid. And people say, how can that be? And I was like, I'm telling you, like, this guy was he was not afraid of anything. He would ride his horse 2 weeks by himself back in the wilderness and then come out. Like, he would have horses fall on him and trap him. He'd be attacked by a bear. He'd be attacked by men. He'd be threatened with guns. Yeah. Like, he was literally the toughest guy I've ever met in my life, not afraid of anything. And that was the one thing he taught me, like, you don't have to be afraid. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. But I remember, like, that love is that powerful. It's like, you can't judge a dad in prison of how good he's being a dad, because we don't know. Like, it's the details. Like, I tell people, like you said, like, you're like, well, what is that? What are these things? And it's like, it's just paper and paint. When you get up close, it's not real. It's like the things we see on Facebook of all these parents of, like, they're amazing. It's like, they still have the same messiness, that we have. They still have the same frustrations. They still cry, am I doing it right? They still get frustrated, and their parents and their kids say, I hate you, and like walk away. It's like, it's all that. But that's what's just so beautiful, about life. I think we're going to miss it. I tell everybody, like, you're going to, all this messiness that you're, that most people are like being medicated, or they're in therapy, or they're trying to forget it by drinking or whatever. It's like, you're going to miss it. It's the most beautiful, messy thing that is happening to you. And it's normal. Like, the messiness is normal. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be okay. All you single moms out there, all you single dads struggling, you're doing the best you can. And it's the most beautiful experience in your life. And, when we all see you struggling, and if we can, believe me, there's more of us out there that can help you, and we will. And like you said, reaching out to the community, I love that. Like, that's it. Like I said, like, it's not an accident that my daughters think that Danny Trejo, El Machete is their uncle. Is because he's part of our community, and he was their uncle, and all of these other, like, really hardcore gangsters are like their uncles, and they would do anything for these 2 girls. Like, that's the thing. Like, I always thought, my God, I fear for the boys or the girls who try to date these 2 girls, because I think, my God, I would not want El Machete calling me up and being like,
you wouldn't want to.
or a former gang member or anybody like that. So it's just so beautiful. That's why I said, like, I think it's a really great idea you're doing. Like, how wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I wish you all the success, because I think it's something beautiful to be able to allow dads even like me, I'd say I'm a non-traditional dad. I'm not a normal dad. I'd say I was like pretty bizarre dad, and have an opportunity to share like my failures and my successes. And I think that's a beautiful thing you're doing. Like, I think a lot of dads will appreciate it, and you're going to hear some beautiful, amazing stories. I always think about the people who do the podcast, because I think, my God, it's like they're learning all of these, like they're literally having an intimate conversation with all these different people who are teaching them what's good and what's bad about being a parent. And it's like, that was the main reason, like, I kind of wanted to do a podcast, because I was like, just think of all this stuff that you're going to learn from all these people that you wouldn't normally learn,
Well, this is more so like for me than anything else. Like, I feel like I'm the first person to benefit from these amazing conversations, and just your time. And I appreciate just your willingness to share, and even the hard things about like your childhood and stuff like that. But it's your name was one of the first that came up when I was making a list of just people that I knew that I just have tremendous respect for as a father. And it's because it's not traditional. It's because you take the extra time with the amazing Valentines for your wife, and those amazing stories with your daughters, and just being there for them, supporting them, and in their creative projects and their ambitions and advocacy, and all of that. It's like, I really appreciate you coming on the show and just having this conversation with me. I've learned so much already, and I hope that we can keep in touch too.
And I wish all those parents out there luck, man. I think, wow, what a gift to be a parent. What a gift to be a dad. I think it's the most important job I've ever had. And I've had a lot of jobs. I've had like probably 30 jobs. I have this whole thing of business cards that I have. And, I've worked from, with Spike Lee in New York to Mark Ruffalo. We just finished a job with Mark Ruffalo here in New Mexico. And I feel like, as important as all that stuff, people are like, wow, you did a Super Bowl commercial. And it's like, as much as I think that's important, or even Chris, working with Chris there, the director of Smoke Signals, people are always like, wow, you work with Chris there, the director of Smoke Signals,
Yeah.
I always think like, my being a dad is so much more important than any of that stuff. And being a husband, like.
That's awesome. And then I wanted to also give you one last opportunity before we go. Anything that you would like to say to Hawthorne and Cheyenne, just directly, like anything that you want to leave them with?
Man, yeah, I read that on your thing, and I was like, and I wrote down some stuff, but then I was thinking like, oh, so cheesy.
To put you on the spot.
It's like if I was going to say anything to my daughters, it would just be, my gratitude. Thank you for choosing me to be your parents. I think, that's the one thing I have learned. Like, you think you chose those kids, and I'm telling you, the universe is the one that let them choose you. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for them, thankful for all their lessons and all their patience and all their guidance, and teaching me so much, and loving me unconditionally, and, like loving me when I'm not a great dad, because there's a lot of times I'm not a great dad. I'm an angry dad punching the ceiling in the car, like, you kids be quiet, and for my daughters to have the patience to say, he's struggling because he didn't have such a great childhood, and so we still love him, and we're gonna keep going. And like, that's what I appreciate, that they didn't give up on me. They didn't leave me at a dad orphanage, like, like, I'm going to try to find some better parents, some more loving parents, but they never gave up on me. And I think that's like, that's I mean, I guess it's the complete reverse of like what everybody you would think. Like you're thinking that you're the one that's in charge, and really, like, I really believe my daughters are in charge.
Yeah.
They really are. And then that's such a gift, because I mean, I think they're going to go out into the world and do beautiful stuff. And I think that's what we want all our kids to do, right? I mean, who
Yeah.
cares if they're rich and famous and whatever? It's like, just if they're kind and caring for other human beings, like, I think that's, you're a successful dad, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being on the show, for having this conversation with me. And yeah, I hope for everyone that will get an opportunity to watch this or listen to this, I hope that they'll be able to take away a lot from this, be able to learn from you and this conversation. And
It's cool you're showing people, because I always think, like, on a podcast, like, man, you never get to see those people. Like, you never get to see you, like, or you see. So
yeah,
awesome.
I'm just like here in this like void, which happens to be my basement.
Which I just love. Again, I think that's real. That's a real dad. A real dad is
Yeah.
a real dad is not in some fancy office with like these round lights that are shining off your glasses, and you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I wish I had like the perfect set right here, but it's because my daughters are upstairs taking a nap.
oh no,
Yes.
that's what's going to make you the most successful podcast right there. The whole idea that you're just like in your basement. That's awesome. That's to me, like, that just proves you don't have to have all this magical stuff. Like, it's you, it's what you bring to it. So
Yeah, well, because you said you could do it this weekend, I was like, okay, let's start, and I have to start at some point. So I need to start with my first guest, and then hopefully, who knows? Hopefully, like, we'll be able to get more people and then grow and that community that you talked about. I'm hoping my vision is hopefully to have a pretty cool online community, and who knows, all around the world. Hopefully people will be inspired by this, want to share their stories and in the comments below, etc. Yeah, share
the
those
rad.
stories.
That's what that rad dad I think I sent you. He does a lot of this. Is like, it's the same thing. It's like sharing, all of us sharing as a community. Our parenting fails and successes is a brilliant idea. Again, like, I remember lecturing when I was at your school, and I try to tell people, like, follow your dreams, do these things, and I never get to like see, like, are they doing these things? Are they being? And so to me, it's like, it was very cool that you even called me, because I was like, right on, like, he's following his dream. He's like, he's not listening to all these people tell him, like, you have to do this, and you have to have insurance, and you have to have, like, these different things. Like, you're doing, you have the passion to put these things out in the universe. I think that's what I had told the class, was like, look, just put it out in the universe and see what happens. And it's like, and that's what you're doing. You're putting in, like, even today, just us talking, it's now bouncing around in the universe, this idea of yours. And unfortunately, like, that's the hardest part. Like, I think we all talked about this as a class, is that, you guys are still in school, and it was like, that hard part is like, even just saying it out of your mouth, like breathing out your dream, and letting it bounce around the universe. And you'll be surprised of how many people, they just don't have the tools to even just say it, to just put it out there, or to start it, like you just did. Like, you started it. You were like, instead of when I emailed you back and I said, well, I can do it anytime, and you're like, okay, well, how about in a couple of weeks? And then in a couple of weeks, we're like, oh, we can't do it. And you go play that dance.
Was very tempting for me to do.
How about 2:00 tomorrow? And I think, like, that's it, man. That's the secret. That's the secret. That's how you do. Like I tell people all the time, even when I came in, it's just like, they're like, how can you, who like graduated with 30 kids and being left at an orphanage and like not have gone to college. Like, how could you have worked for Spike Lee, worked in LA, worked with Samuel Jackson, did the Tour de France, worked on the Tour de France, did Super Bowl commercials, worked with Mark Ruffalo. He traveled and teach in Venice and in Bahrain and Dubai, and work in Dubai and work in Shanghai, and like travel around the world and be a good dad. It's like, how do you do all of that stuff? And I tell people, like, really, like, seriously, it is just like, because I spit it out in the world, and it comes real. And I know that's impossible for people to understand, especially dads. Like, because they're like, I can't go on a road trip because, you know, I gotta pay the bills. And I was like, and I'm just telling you, like, just like what you did, you were like, I'm gonna do this. And you were like, and you did it. And that's it. Like, now it's in the universe, and it's like your idea is bouncing around, and it's like, now if other people are going to see this and they're going to be inspired, then hopefully you're going to inspire these other dads to do stuff. And it's just like this huge, you know, massive blast of stars and they're just tumbling down into the earth. And it's like, that's because you said, hey, let's do this at 2:00.
Well, now I'm motivated. I have to edit this now and get it out there. My goal is not to have it just sit on the shelf for a couple months. My goal is to like continue to ask people. So many cold calls that I've done, just emails to random people. I'm just waiting to hear back from different people, and a couple more people I want to email. So yeah, I'm motivated now just talking to you to keep it moving, keep it rolling, and just.
Well, if there's anything I can do to help out, you know, I'm always here for you, man. Whatever
cool.
you do. So.
Well, I appreciate that so much. A huge thank you to my first guest, Lonnie Anderson, and thank you for joining us on this journey. To follow more of Lonnie's work, check out his Instagram and watch the awesome short film by Cruz titled Love in the Valley. Links are in the description. And if you like this podcast, make sure to follow so you get notifications of new episodes. And be sure to share it with a friend. That's how we grow Girl Dad Nation. Until next time, go be a dad.